What's up, Buff fans? I'm Terris.
And I'm Patrick Dawson.
We begin with the free fall of this season's Colorado men's basketball team. Last Saturday, the Buffaloes lost to the Oklahoma State Cowboys 83-73. And with this loss, CU has dropped to 0-6 in conference play for just the second time in the Ted Boyle era. Ben Dak led the Buffs scoring with 15 points, while Julian Hammond and Sebastian Ranchik both scored double digits. Oklahoma State put together a very well-balanced attack with men's basketball for the Buffs has really been a struggle. Here's hoping they can turn things around.
Following that loss to the Cowboys, men's basketball faced off against BYU late Tuesday night. They went on to lose their 7th game in a row to start Big 12 play, 83-67. Richie Saunders dropped 25 points as the Cougars completely took over in the second half. Buffs only had 8 assists as Julian Hammond's 17 points wasn't enough to stop BYU's high-octane offensive night. Coach Boyle even issued an apology to the fans and former players following the resounding defeat. On the topic of the fans, it's now time to take you to Buff Banner. And this time, people are actually, bannering. Take it away, guys.
It's no secret that Colorado men's basketball is struggling to pick up even one win this first season back in the Big 12. However, those struggles have come paired with a near unprecedented lack of interest in the team by students. Affectionately nicknamed the Keg in years past, the CU Event Center's student section has been little more than just a mild nuisance for much opposition this season. While there have been a few exceptions, we're here to figure out why this is the case and what can be done to address it. Alongside Oliver Hayes, I'm Harrison Simeon, and it's time to Buff Banner. Well, Oliver, how you doing, man?
Not too bad. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, the first thing I wanted to just inquire about, since you're the biggest expert we have about this topic, you've been to most of the games over the past 3 years, especially the past 2. You're, basically the beat writer of the team. What can you say about these past 3 years and how the fan presence has gotten to this point?
I mean, honestly, over the 3 years that I've been here, it's been fairly similar, which is surprising, especially after the year that we had last year and the recruits that we got last year, specifically Cody Williams. It's not, he's the highest recruit in Colorado history. He was one and done, 3 NBA draft picks on last year's team. It was a record year, yet they only hit 63% of capacity. That's what they average. That's what our fans averaged here at the CU Event Center last year. And so over the past 3 years, it's not been a matter of whether or not more fans are showing up or if there's talent on the floor or whether or not the Buffs are winning. Fans just don't care.
So, you've obviously been to these games, and do you have any sort of reasoning that you could think of that would be the cause of it?
The biggest thing that I've seen is that people don't feel like there's enough around the CU Event Center anymore that brings people out. I think obviously nicknamed the Keg, people used to have a lot of fun before games, before tip-off, but I don't think people do that anymore. They've talked about how there's not as many bars in that area, there's not as mmany things to do, and in that part of campus, that part of Boulder, people like to be up on Pearl Street, but like to be up on the hill. Folsom Field's closer to those areas, so that's why people are able to pack Folsom Field. Football also has a richer history here at CU, I think that the biggest thing is that there's just not enough to do, and when you're trying to get people to come out, especially for a 9 p.m. tip-off on a Tuesday night like we saw this week, it's just hard to get fans out, especially in a year like this when the Buffs have yet to win a game.
Right, and even when in the past few years, the Pac-12, there were some late start times, there was still some decent fan presence. There was, a lot of games really packed and where the fans became a factor. But something I've noticed maybe this year, at least that I've thought about, is the prime effect. And I noted that this was the first year where the freshman class was after the hiring of Deion Sanders and, saw the hype and saw the intrigue and was like, hey, I'll go to Colorado. That seems like a really good place to go because of their football team. And it's been the case. The team was very good this year. Every game has been a sellout. There's been so much passion about the team, over the past 2 years. And rowdiness and the fans being a factor, but it really hasn't been that same energy for basketball, and it is a little bit of a bummer when you had a season like last year where there was 3 NBA players. They ended up going to the round of 32 in March Madness. They became a pretty good team at the end, though unfortunately for the fans, they weren't able to see a lot of it due to some of the midseason struggles. So I think part of it may be the fans noting that the team maybe isn't quite up to standards, isn't a marquee program. But I think part of it too may just be the football side of it. Where do you see in that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, comparing football to basketball, it's hard to make that comparison just because an outside event versus an inside event. There's a lot more seats at Folsom Field. Like I mentioned, the history, Coach Prime. It's the place you want to be. There's a reason that that Colorado had the most views of any Big 12 football games during the football season. But as far as basketball, I think it matters with the on field or on court production, the talent. What happens a little bit because when Tad first got hired here, Tad Boyle up in in the last year of the Big 12, that second year he won the Pac-12 tournament in Colorado's first year in the Pac-12. They made March Madness multiple times in his first 5-6 years, and the attendance was great. The average attendance was around 9,000, 10,000, and then towards the late 2010s, especially during that COVID year, even though the teams were good, the Buffs made March Madness and then weren't able to go to March Madness due to COVID. That's when things really started to kind of fall off, and I think really there's kind of just been a complacency with Colorado basketball at this point that's been expressed, especially with the struggles during this season. You see some of the same issues that come up on the that show up on the floor. Turnovers specifically have been a big issue. People want to see this Buffs, they want to see the Buffs go deep into March Madness, and with a team like last year, that's what people expected. But I think people also, they don't watch the games as much because if you watched the team last year, they were good. They only lost one game at home, and that was to the best team in the Pac-12, which was Arizona. And they were dealing with injuries all throughout. If you went to those home games, they were super fun. If you went to those home games, you saw KJ Simpson scoring 34 points. If you went to those home games for the women's side too, you saw those same things. And still, I'm not sure if people were necessarily showing out. And so at this point, really the only poll that I've seen for Colorado basketball at the moment was a Bellarmine game when they when the football team was honoring Travis Hunter for winning the Heisman. So
right.
that goes to your prime effect.
I definitely see that. And, I think, some of it is the modern element of college sports, the marketing aspect where, you have to get the fans in the seats. But right now with football overwhelming the landscape of college sports, it can be a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and I think another thing, too, is there's not too much of an incentive to watch this team if they're not playing that good. You see some of the things that they give out to the student section, but that may pull some fans here and there. I have a cool hat from my first, from freshman year, but there's not really a reason for these kids to go. It's not like, as I mentioned, it's not like there's the tailgates that used to happen before games. Those things aren't around. The tip-off times are a little harder to get to compared to football. There's 2-3 games a week instead of 1 game a week. So it definitely is harder to, make as much time to consistently show up to games. But when you look around to other Big 12 schools, of course, they're, more prestigious programs. It would be ridiculous to compare Colorado to a school like Kansas or Iowa State or, any other, of the Big 12 programs. They've, most of them have had much more success than Colorado. But on the other hand, they promote that. They say, if you're going to come here, you're going to come to these basketball games. You're going to pack the student section. You're going to fill out the stadium. We're going to have our chants. We're going to have stripeouts, blackouts, whiteouts, whatever it could be. And at least as far as I've seen this year, there really hasn't been that same exact incentive to go to these games. And even in the past years, like I said, even during the good years, which it does impact people showing up to the games. There isn't too much of an incentive to show up. It's not like there's too much pride in being a CU fan at the moment and really impacting the game. And it's interesting because the one promo that we do have is the free Shake Shack when opponents miss free throws, and that gets the CU Event Center on their feet louder than almost any single play that we've seen this year besides the Bang Got Dak alley-oop. And so I think the CU Event Center, if Tad can't get players onto the floor, they're talented. If there's not as much around the CU Event Center that people can do, at the very least they have to come up with more promos like the free Shake Shack, like the half-court shots, not letting kids just shoot one half-court shot, let them shoot multiple. Make in between timeouts, make sure that there's people on the floor doing things instead of, I enjoy the cheerleaders, I enjoy the band and whatnot, but if the fans don't feel like their presence matters, then I don't think that they're going to show up.
No, I definitely agree with you. Those are a lot of good points, and that's going to do it for this week's Buff Banner. Let's send it back to Terris and Patrick at the desk.
The Colorado Buffaloes men's basketball team faced the Arizona Wildcats on Saturday, January 25th. The Wildcats are 11-6, putting them at the 3rd seed in the Big 12. While on the other hand, like we mentioned earlier in the show, the Buffaloes are on a decline, holding a record of 9-8, putting them at 16th in the Big 12. A notable player to keep an eye out for is Caleb Love, a shifty and explosive guard who is the leader of this Arizona basketball team. On the other side of the court for Colorado, pay close attention to Julian Hammond. He is a local player who has spent his whole collegiate career here in the Centennial State, and he's putting up his best season thus far, with no signs of slowing down. You can find this game on ESPN+, where coverage will start at 1 p.m.
After facing off against the University of Arizona Wildcats, the men's basketball team this Saturday will continue to face off Arizona teams as the Buffs will be taking on Arizona State in another Big 12 matchup at the CU Events Center Tuesday night at 7 p.m. The last time these teams played earlier this year, the Sun Devils defeated the Buffs 81-61. In this past matchup, the Buffs bench scored 40 points, but Colorado struggled to make shots as they only connected on 34%, while the Sun Devils shot over 50% as a unit and 40% from three. Colorado is going into this weekend on a 7-game losing streak and are looking to break that slide. Game will be streamed on ESPN+, and tip-off is at 7 p.m.
The Northwest Concourse of the CU Event Center is getting some brand new tarps in the rafters. On Thursday, the men's basketball team announced they will be introducing the Wall of Honor, a section of the concourse with jerseys hung of the most successful Buffs alumni. The likes of Chauncey Billups, Alec Burks, Jay Humphreys, and Derek White will be added to the wall, among others who have played for at least 5 years in the NBA or on the world stage at the Olympics. On Tuesday, Bertie Halderson, Cliff Mealy, and Jim Davis will be honored in person, while Jay Humphreys will be honored on Saturday, February 8th. Those active in the NBA, as well as former players not yet inducted on the wall, will be honored at later dates.
With the rocky start to the men's basketball team on our mind, it's time for this week's trivia question. Should the Buffs fall to the Arizona Wildcats, they'll move to 0-8 in conference play. It's a rough place to be, but this isn't the first time Colorado has been in that position. So this week's question: when was the last time the Buffalo started 0-8 to start conference play? Stick around, we'll have that answer coming up later in the show.
The women's basketball team fell to the Cincinnati Bearcats 65-59 this past Saturday. Colorado led by 8 entering the final period before senior Cincy guard Talia Halton caught fire. CU got in significant foul trouble and struggled with their turnovers, allowing Hilton's 27 points, 18 of which came in the fourth quarter alone, to lead the Bearcats to a comeback victory. This loss is the Buffs' 4th in conference play and 6th overall.
Women's basketball returns home from their road trip to face the Kansas State Wildcats on Saturday. The Wildcats are ranked 10th in the nation and undefeated in conference play, though they will be without their best player, 5th-year center Ayoka Lee, due to a foot injury. K-State faces a tough home team in Colorado who only have 1 loss this year in Boulder. Tomorrow's tip-off from the CU Event Center is set for 1 p.m.
On Wednesday, the women's basketball Buffs will hit the road to take on the BYU Cougars. CU is ranked 9th in the Big 12, while BYU sits at 14th with a 1-6 conference record. The Buffs are currently winless on the road since the start of Big 12 play and may look to enact some revenge after the Cougars took down the men's team last Tuesday. Tip-off from Provo, Utah is set for 7 p.m.
We've got some football updates along with the ski team's campaign to defend their national title. Stay tuned. You're watching ScoBuff Sports.
Who wants to do basketball? Who wants to do football? Who wants to do soccer? Who wants to do volleyball?
That's so sick. Did Christian just say that?
Videography. Anyone want to do that?
On Tuesday, ScoBuff Sports published our official report card for all the teams on campus in their fall campaigns. Coach Prime and the football team recorded their first winning season since 2016, earning them an A-. The men's basketball team was not as lucky, still on the hunt for their first in-conference victory. This rough start for Tad Boyle and the CU men give them a C- to start their season. The men's Division II hockey team season has been nothing short of electrifying, as they boast a 14-5 record this season. Incredible performance by captain Diego Patones and goaltender Caleb Allen earned them an easy A. To see an in-depth breakdown of all these grades, as well as the sports we didn't just now cover, check out the full article, published on our website, skullbuffsports.com.
On Saturday, Buff Zone reported that NFL Hall of Fame running back Marshall Faulk was the top candidate to be Colorado's next running backs coach. Faulk was the MVP with the St. Louis Rams team known as the greatest show on turf, building his pedigree from 1994 to 2005. Following his retirement, Faulk worked with head coach Deion Sanders as a TV personality with NFL Network. In 2017, Faulk was suspended by the network after being named in a lawsuit filed by a woman working as a wardrobe stylist that accused him, among others, of sexual misconduct. Also included in the report from Buff Zone was that Gary Flea Harrell, CU's running backs coach for the past 2 seasons, is no longer with the program.
The final AP Top 25 college football poll was announced this week. voters ranked Colorado as the 25th best team in the nation. The Buffs' blowout loss to BYU in the Alamo Bowl might have been a factor in the squad dropping 5 spots since the last AP poll was released in early December. Still, this fall was an outstanding second season for Coach Prime and his Buffaloes.
This weekend in Utah, the Buffs' Nordic ski team delivered an impressive performance. On Saturday, the Buffaloes finished second overall with a total of 162 points, just behind host Utah. Freshman Astrid Lunde made an outstanding debut for the women's team, taking second in her first ever collegiate race. Over on the men's team, Will Koch led with a 4th place finish on Sunday. Despite dropping a place from the previous day of racing, the Buffs still managed to steal a spot on the podium and show strong potential for the rest of the season. The Buffaloes will now head to Bozeman next weekend for the Montana State Invitational to close out January.
Next up for the ski team is the Montana State Invitational in Bozeman, Montana. The men's 20K freestyle took place earlier today as the 4 events span 2 weekends. The 7.5 Classic will happen on Sunday, with the Invitational wrapping up next weekend with the giant slalom and the regular slalom on Monday and Tuesday.
The tennis team has started the season 2-0, defeating both Air Force and Denver University last weekend. Now they look to take on in-state rival Colorado State on Sunday at 2 p.m. at home. You can read Colby Wyatt's article on our website about the team's first 2 matches.
History was made last weekend at the Colorado Classic. CU's Isaiah Gibbons was the one of 3 players to accomplish the first ever sub-4-minute mile on Colorado soil. Unfortunately, he was outrun by CSUP's Reese Sharman-Newell, who now holds the record for the fastest mile ever ran in the state of Colorado. The track and field team will compete again tomorrow at the UCCS Invite out in Colorado Springs.
On Wednesday, Colorado lacrosse attacker Madeline Pisani was named a USA Lacrosse Magazine preseason All-American honorable mention. Pisani topped the Pac-12 in goals, points, and shots last season, earning first-team all-conference honors. The grad student led Colorado to the Pac-12 championship last year with 5 goals throughout the conference tournament this past May. The lacrosse team kicks off their first ever season in the Big 12 in just over a month on February 28th against the Army Black Knights.
Hey Buff fans, it's me, Brittany Garcia, and I'm here with this week's Play of the Week. Starting at number 5, we got CU Buffs alum KJ Simpson for the Greensboro Swarm. He scored his 34th point in the G League with a 3-pointer as a classic. Look at that. And then at number 4, No Snooki goes in the bench, and he goes, slam! Oh, that was crazy. That had to hurt. And then at number 3, No Snooki again goes post to post and break checks the LMU Lions to stop them from scoring. That one, I know, has to hurt. And then at number 2, we got Aaron Salomon with a post to post save as he goes, and then boom, he saves it. You can't do that. No, no, no. And then at our winner, sitting at number 1, we got Bangot Dak with a slam. Boom! There we go. Bangot Dak. Well, that's this week for the Play of the Week. Back to you guys at Terris and Patrick at the desk.
The men's D1 hockey team swept the University of Arizona Wildcats in 2 games this past weekend. In the first game, the Buffs won in overtime 4-3, and the second, they had a great win with a score of 4-1. With that series sweep, Colorado now sits at 3rd in the WCHL and have been ranked number 24th in the nation. That was the last road trip for the Buffs for a few weeks, as they'll be back home for the next 2 series.
This weekend, the men's Division I hockey Buffs take on the number 2 ranked WCHL Oklahoma Sooners. The Sooners stand with a 15-5-2 record with a combined 33 points on the season. The number 3 ranked Buffs hold a 16-10-1 record with 30 points on the season. Catch all the action live on our YouTube channel, Sco Buff Sports, on Friday, January 7th, and Saturday, February 8th at 7 p.m.
It was a busy weekend for the D2 Buffs, who hosted the BMHC tournament at home. The tournament started Friday night with an electrifying matchup against the Michigan State Spartans. Buffs walked away with a 6-3 victory. Saturday night saw another dominating performance by the Buffs with a 4-0 win over the Sioux College Cougars, who traveled all the way from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. was a great win. It was a great night for the Buffs goaltender, Aaron Solomon, and the Cincinnati Bearcats flipped the script on Sunday night, unfortunately for the Buffs, shutting them out 2-0. The tournament closed out Monday morning with a 2-0 shootout victory against the Loyola Marymount Lions.
As the men's Division II hockey Buffs enter the final weeks of the regular season, they look forward to facing a familiar foe, MSU Denver, in their final home game of the year. The Roadrunners sit at second place in the BMHC with a 14-9 record on the season. The number 1 seeded Buffaloes hold a 16-6-1 record on this season. If you can't make it out to the rink, catch the action live on the YouTube channel Scope Buff Sports on Sunday at 1 p.m.
The women's hockey team returns to the CU Rec Center this weekend to take on the Miami of Ohio Redhawks. Number 5 ranked CCWHA Redhawks hold a 10-8 record on the season with a combined 23 points. Colorado still holds the number 1 seed in the WWCHL with a 13-3 record and 27 points on the year. Catch the action live on Scope Buff Sports tonight at 5 p.m. and tomorrow at 11 a.m. If you're waiting for tonight's broadcast, go ahead and stand by. That stream is coming right after this program.
On Tuesday, a public celebration of life was held for Bill McCartney, Colorado football's most prolific head coach, who passed away 2 weeks ago at the age of 85. Hundreds of family, friends, and members of the CU athletic community flocked to the CU Event Center on an emotional day that encapsulated the man who led the Buffaloes to their lone national championship in 1990 and set a standard of excellence for not only the program, but the university as a whole. Take a look.
I really feel wanted, and I'm excited. I promise.
What's up, Buff fans? I am Nick Evans, and I am back for this week's Rapid Fire. Let's start things off with the ski team, who are up in Bozeman, Montana. They're, of course, defending their national championship title, and they're looking great so far. I don't envy anyone up in those mountains, so hope you're staying warm. Let's go to somewhere warmer then, to the CU Event Center, where the women's team will be taking on number 10, Kansas State, on Saturday. Tip-off will be at 1 p.m., and I like Colorado's odds heading into that one. Definitely a next game to watch at the Event Center this weekend. So let's move on to hockey. And it's another busy weekend at the Rec Center. First up, we had the women's team hosting the Miami of Ohio Redhawks. I love MAC schools, and we'll probably be there in like 10 minutes after this airs right now. That'll be at 5 p.m. on Friday, and then at 8 p.m. is the men's D1 team at home to take on the Oklahoma Sooners. That will be their first game on home ice of the new year, and it will be packed. So if you don't want to brave the elements, stay home and stay warm with some SCOA Sports Hockey. Live at 7:30, we will have our pregame show then. That's it for me. I've been Nick Evans, and if you're watching this on the hockey intermission, I also produce those streams. Hi, guys. Back to you guys at the desk.
And now it's time for our Tweet of the Week. This week's tweet comes from the Minnesota Timberwolves. The post shows Colorado football's own Travis Hunter receiving a jersey from superstar Anthony Edwards. What a moment for this year's Heisman Trophy winner. It's time to reveal this week's answer to our trivia question. Earlier in the show, we asked you, when was the last season the Buffalo started 0-8 to start conference play? The answer is, drum roll please, the 1992 season. Buffs finally broke their losing streak against Kansas State in game number 9, and Buff fans are hoping the current roster can do the same and perhaps salvage their record in the same way the 1992 team did. And that's it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's edition of the live show. Thank you to all of our wonderful crew members who made today's show possible. Again, I'm Patrick Dawson.
And I'm Terris Harris. We'll see you all next week, and never forget, you heard it here first.